Good evening and welcome to the Kim B. Davis Show. I'm your host, Kim B. Davis, and this evening we have one of our favorite guests on. We have Dr. Angela Celeste May. We know her as our clinical, our organizational, and our forensically trained psychologist. She is also the president and co-founder of A.M. and Associates. She is also the president and founder of Celeste Productions Incorporated. She is the immediate past president of the Michigan Psychological Association Foundation Board. She is a trustee of the Michigan Health Council. She is also a member of the Drug-Free Youth in Detroit Advisory Board. And if that's not enough, she's also an author and a musician. And this evening, she's going to talk to us about using our voice, advocating for ourselves. Good evening, Dr. Angie. How are you? Welcome to the show.
I am doing great this evening. How are you doing?
I am doing great. All right, so let's get to our topic because I've been waiting for this topic. So, over the last few months, I have been hearing about the use of voice. And Mr. Elon Musk took over Twitter, and I've been hearing people talk about silencing people's voices and reinstating people who were banned. And here we are at the holiday time, and lots of people are still having that conversation. And it's the same joke that I always bring up to you. You stole my red truck in 1977, and I'm still mad at you. And folks feel like I'm going to go to my grandma's house, or I'm going to go to my mom or my dad's house or whoever it is. And that relative is going to be there, and they feel like, yes, I'm a grown-up. Yes, I pay my own bills. Yes, I've gone to college. Yes, I'm a professional, a business owner, a creative, whatever it is that you do. I have made people, as they say on TikTok. Have you made your own people yet? I have made my own people. And still, when I walk into a place where my family is, where I struggle, I still feel like I'm not able to use my voice. Now, I gave you two specific, different situations, but talk to us about the similarities where people struggle in using their voice and why it's important for us to use our voice.
Well, you are absolutely right. There's a through line, as they say. There are definitely similarities, regardless of the situation. And it starts with the way that we define and perceive what we're calling that voice, what we're calling our voice. So, I'm an educator. Like I say, I like to define terms, right? Yes. So just to define what do we mean by voice? A lot of times people, they may think of them in different ways, but I think for the most part, the bottom line is when we say voice, we mean our ability to express. Yes. So I'm just going to leave it there with a ... Yeah. Ability to express whatever comes after that, whatever you are feeling, thinking, your opinions, anything like that. So that idea of the voice and the ability to express is tied to permission as well. So ability, permission, however, whatever terms we want to use, it's that idea that we can move in the world in regardless of the different spaces, whether it's Twitter, whether it's in the family kitchen or living room, that we are able to express and be, this is a term that's kind of become a little cliche, but it's still very, very valid and true, to be our authentic selves. So if you're feeling a little irritated or upset, it doesn't mean you want to go on a rampage, but that idea of having and being able to use your voice suggests the question, well, am I allowed? That's the permission. Am I allowed to show that? Am I allowed to express that? So using the voice, using our voice, it's everything that you can think of, I would say, that has to do with expressing those things. So using the voice, the first thing we think about is our physical voice. So speaking, yelling, screaming, whispering, laughing, whatever, all the ways in which we use this instrument, our voice. But it also has to do with the nonverbals. expressing how we feel, being our true authentic selves with our facial expressions, with our body language, all those kinds of things. So I think that's a good place to start, is how, what that encompasses, how we define it, what it encompasses. So it's all the ways in which we express and show and share our thoughts, feelings, emotions, all those things.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one place to start with that. Because it is tied to those insides, those inside parts of ourselves. The second half of your question was, why is it important?
Mm-hmm.
It's important because it is very much tied to our identity. So you may have, or a person might have, thoughts, feelings, reactions, etc., that they choose not to share for whatever reasons in a particular context, or with certain people, or in a particular room.
Mm-hmm.
They may choose not to share it. And of course, choice, that's an important word that goes hand in hand with permission, that they may choose not to share, but their identity and we can tie it to self-esteem, all those things, self-concept, etc., may be such that they say that my feelings are valid, my perceptions are valid, even if I choose not to express. So it's important because it does have to do with how much value we place on our thoughts, feelings, emotions, and all those things that we talked about that have to do with expressing our voice in the world. And the more we might feel that we don't have permission to express those thoughts, feelings, emotions, etc., whether it's expressing them to others at a particular time, but most importantly, whether we have permission to acknowledge it internally to ourselves. It's very, very important, because we can damage our self-esteem. We can damage our perception of our value. We can devalue ourselves, and that goes hand in hand with devaluing our worth. All of those things are tied together with this idea of believing that your voice is important and valid. So all of that stuff is mixed up in what we call that voice.
And so those are some excellent points. So I want to flip the coin a little bit and talk about social media, because you talked about permission in being able to express ... So on social media, we have the opportunity to express ourselves through written words on the computer, on the internet.
Yeah.
And it has the ability to go all over the world and encounter a variety of different people and people just like us. And it's interesting because you talk about having permission, or believing that you have permission. And I often wonder, when I come across people who write such vile and hateful and very angry comments online, and make, these sort of pseudo threats where they're like, well, you better not leave out of your house, or the Trump people are going to come get you, or something. And I've heard people say that who've made threats. Why do you think that some people feel emboldened because you're behind? And I always say, you're a coward. You're behind the keyboard. Nobody sees you. Yeah, we can go to whatever social media page and look at what your actual page is. Is that really you? Right. A lot of people on the other side of the spectrum, where we, quote unquote, the Karens of the world, and I think the male version is Kevin or Ken, I can't remember.
Yeah, I've heard Kevin, but
yeah, something like that. But these are the people that harass minority people, not just African Americans, but Asian people, Latino people who may be speaking Spanish, and they'll say, you need to go back to your own country. And we forget sometimes collectively as a people that people can speak multiple languages. And some people who may be Black and brown may speak multiple languages. and may decide to converse with whoever they're with in said language. Yet you will have someone who will feel comfortable and emboldened enough to insult someone in ignorance when you don't even know this person. And it's like my grandmother always said, okay, you're going to be nosy. That's when you get your face messed up, because you get putting your nose into somebody else's business. You're going to get your face popped. And why do you think that people feel their permission, yet when you go to confront them, they clam up? I didn't say that. Yes, you did. It's right here on video. I got it right here. Or I got 6 other people who've seen it. And we've seen almost like a mass delusion. And that's probably not the right word, Dr. Angie, so please correct me. But I'll say this. There was a disturbing video I saw of a young woman who was out walking, and because she was a small-breasted individual, she said, I don't wear a bra. I have on a sports bra, and I'm out jogging, running, whatever. She was minding her business. Some white woman was offended, and it turned into, it looked like a horror movie where she was in her car. The Latino woman was in her car, and they were trying to get her phone because she had videotaped them. And so they had surrounded her car. The woman in question had climbed on her car. And I said, this looks like a horror movie. But I wonder, and I don't know what the correct term is, but I'll call it a mass hysteria, a mass delusion, where some woman begins to cry, that's my phone. It's not your phone. And then all of a sudden, these other people, because they look like you, come to your aid, and they see this other person who appears to be different and tries to attack them. I know I just gave you a lot. But try to dig through it and help us out.
Well, gosh, I hadn't seen that particular one. And, unfortunately, in this day and age, there's so much out there that people post that we see. On the one, just as an aside, on the one hand, I know, we have these conversations. On the one hand, the platforms, the social media platforms, has contributed to, I think your terminology is right on point. Mass hysteria, mass delusions, absolutely. Plural delusions. There are several delusions out there. But these platforms have, on the one hand, like made them, it's easier to spread and all that, like we talk about. On the other hand, as we've seen in the cases of the George Floyd types of incidents and other tragedies, the ability to capture what is going on and show it around the world or around the country has also stopped some things, or at least let us know some of these things that have been going on. So, like with everything, there's, the two aspects to it, or pros and cons. But to your question about, first, one part of your question about the emboldened, the boldness of being behind those screens and those keyboards, that anonymity. And people have talked about this, especially in the last several years, of the heightened vitriol that comes from people being, behind these keyboards. And they talk about how it is that anonymity that emboldens and makes people feel like they can get away with more and all that. Going back to the first part of our conversation about the voice and permission, there's also something called responsibility when we use our voice. So when I was, talking about the use of the voice and saying that we made, it's one thing to feel that you don't have a voice or invalidate your voice, or maybe others have made you feel that way. So you don't value, your voice and your ability to express. That's one thing that can be damaging and can feel like our voice is taken away from us. But as I was saying, another situation is when you do value your voice, excuse me, that you have something valid to share, but you may choose not to in certain instances.
Mm-hmm.
So for that example, um, I would say oftentimes if a person chooses not to, there are lots of reasons not to, but some of those reasons have to do with understanding that you have a responsibility and that everything, every thought and idea doesn't need to be expressed.
Yes.
It doesn't need to be expressed, and it doesn't need to be expressed in every room with every audience. Some things we share with certain people, some things we don't with others. We may know or suspect that something we may be feeling and thinking and etc. may be hurtful or harmful in some ways. So we may choose not to. So this whole idea, you didn't say it, but I know we all talk about it now, right? Our amendment rights.
Yes.
Our amendment rights. And we forget to say that along with those amendment rights, there are responsibilities to the use of a voice. Voice is a very powerful thing. And we often talk about it in this day and age of supporting people to use their voice because it is a powerful thing. But like any powerful thing, it's like a two-edged sword. It's very powerful in a good way, but it also can be very, very damaging. So when we get to the behind the screen, behind the the anonymity part of it, one of the main things that people talk about, psychologists have talked about, and others, one of the main reasons that people do feel more bold is because the hiding, the anonymity aspect of it means that they supposedly don't have to take responsibility for their words, for their actions, for the ways in which they may be harming people. And so when, like you say, people are confronted in real life or face to face or whatever the case may be, and for those that try to deny it, no, I didn't, it's because they know. Some may be more aware than others, but on some level, they know that there's a responsibility. And when you confront someone by saying, you did this, why did you, what is this about? When you shine the light on that person where they're no longer able to hide, then they have to grapple with that responsibility. So we do have a responsibility one to another, whether we are aware of it, whether we want to acknowledge it or not. So yeah, that whole responsibility piece is a part of what I think why people feel more bold, when they think that they're not seen, they think they can run and hide, or as they used to say, what is it? Throw the rock and hide your hands. Why are you hiding your hands if you're perfectly fine with, if you think that you didn't do anything wrong? So that's a part of it. And another thing I'll say too is that responsibility, all of those things also have to do with consequences. So I think I can get away with throwing the rock and hiding my hands behind the anonymity and all of that. The getting away with is because I think that I won't have to pay any consequence for it. And unfortunately, oftentimes that has been the case, but as with anything, as with technology, people are learning to trace things now. Oh,
thank you.
No problem. People can, you can trace that address in your computer, different ways that people. It's not as much of a guarantee that you don't have to pay any consequences for it. So, unfortunately, it does reveal a lot about some negative parts of human nature, or I'll say challenging parts of human nature. Unfortunately.
Those are great points. And I'm glad that you brought up responsibility, because that is important. And I think sometimes people forget that using your voice, however you decide to do it, there is a responsibility. And of course, yes, we have the right to say what we want to, but we always have to think about how that will affect other people. The last question I want to ask you, Dr. Angie. So when people want to communicate or want to speak their truth, and it was important that you talked about consequences, because no matter what we do, whether it's an action, whether it's something that was spoken or left unspoken, there is still a consequence to that, and it's important. Is there any one way for people to speak their truth? Or are you able to, for example, if I am mad at you because you took my red truck, and I decide to write you a letter and send you a letter, is that okay to do? Or do I need to go and confront you and shake you and like, see, you took my red truck. I'm still mad about it.
Well, it depends on the situation.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on the people involved. It depends on the relationship, plural. It depends on, a lot of different dynamics to the situation.
Mm-hmm.
But having said that, there are lots of different ways to address it depending on the relationship and all that. But I would say that while there isn't just like one way to do it, there are some, I think, like common threads that are the most helpful, I would say, most helpful for helping us to express what we need to express, and at the same time, keeping in mind consequences and our responsibility. Excuse me, one of the things that fellow psychologists and counselors and others often talk about is this idea of, you use the word like expressing one's truth, your own truth, is this idea of saying how you feel, expressing it, but keeping it within the bounds of, I feel, this is how I feel, when this happened, or when you did blah, 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 I felt like, or it made me feel as though. So that's one of the ways that, we often suggest that people express painful issues or, disagreements, arguments, whatever they may be, whatever the case may be. Excuse me. And the reason for that is to try to tamp down the accusation part, those feelings of the blaming and the accusing of the other person and all of that. They may have some blame in it. They may have a lot of blame in the situation, but starting with expressing your feelings about it, your experience of it, one of the reasons that's important and that's valuable is it helps in the relationship because it helps the person to not be quite so defensive, generally speaking. Everyone's different, but oftentimes it helps the other person to be a little less defensive because you're not coming out the gate with what you did. It is, remember when, and that's another thing, even, the language, perhaps not so much, when you, and you can say all of these things. You can say, when, remember when you blah, 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 you could say that. Other ways of saying it that might contribute a little less to the person shutting down and feeling defensive. Maybe remember when that happened, as opposed to you. Remember when the when the red wagon. Remember when that red wagon, I wasn't able to take it home. Do you remember when that happened?
Yeah, because you took it. You stole it.
Exactly. So I think some of the base, like basics, regardless of whether you write a letter is very valuable. Formal confrontation, is important. Sometimes you just need to do that. Is to express your own feelings. You can't, you certainly can say, when you did that, I found it hurtful, but you're still keeping front of mind, and an important part of the conversation for them to hear is, how it affected me.
Right.
Be as, really try to be as truthful as possible. You know how when you get into arguments with folks and things escalate because you've got all these emotions and feelings and you're trying to get out. And oftentimes if they push back a little bit, or I don't know what you're talking about, or whatever the case, because things are so heated, people can hurt their own cause by starting to embellish and then like adding stuff in there that did not even happen.
Right.
And then, add some spices.
My little weevil people were in that wagon. You stole
it. Exactly. So as much as possible, even though it's a lot of emotion and heated, stick to the truth as far as you know it, because a lot of times there may be parts of that we didn't know about. But from my experience, what I saw, I found this hurtful because whatever, blah, blah. And then, and everybody may not be ready to address that, but there's something in there also about the opportunity to invite, why did you do that? I found that really hurtful. And people will react, like I say, different ways. but starting that conversation is important. Confronting that painful truth, and however you do it, it is important to do at some point. If it's, nagging at you, it's a wound that's not healing and needs to be addressed. And like relationships, the nature of relationships, it may take a few discussions. It may take them, I don't want to talk about that, and come back later, or whatever the case. So there are a lot of different ways to address it. But honesty, sticking to your own truth, how you felt about it, letting them know how you felt about it, and asking. You may not get answers right then, but at least asking. I think those things are valuable.
Thank you, Dr. Angie. That was wonderful. You talked to us about using our voice and being able to advocate for ourselves. Now, before we get out of here, tell us where we can find you. Tell us what you have coming up. You've got a concert coming up, so you got to announce that. And then talk to us about all the different things that you got going on.
Thank you. Thank you for asking. Yes, we do have a concert. I play violin and viola with the Violin Divas. We're a Detroit-based organization, Detroit-based string group, all ladies. And we've been together for a number of years, over 15 years, 12 years, something like that, a long time now. So we're in the Metro Detroit area. It was started by my sister, Michelle May. So we are a recreational string group, and we will be performing, if you're in Detroit, on the first Saturday in December. First Saturday in December is December 3rd. And in Detroit, every year we have this wonderful holiday tradition. Every year we celebrate Noel night in the Cultural Center. So that's where a lot of our major museums are, and all kinds of wonderful, buildings, and our cultural treasures open their doors for free entertainment. So there's all kinds of music and singing and all kinds of wonderful things, food, all kinds of stuff. So the Violin Divas will be performing Saturday, December 3rd at the Scarab Club in Detroit from 6:30 p.m. to 7:15. So, and it's free, so come out and enjoy. I do have a performance coming up. I haven't announced it yet. It's in March of next year, but we have to confirm the date. So that'll be me. I'll be singing, performing with a wonderful musician. So I will give more information about that. So performance is coming up. Yes. And I'm continuing to teach, and my voice student and my piano student, they're going to be performing at a local recreational center here in Detroit. So helping my students get ready for that. I am not teaching at the moment in terms of psychology, but I am co-running my company with Michelle May, my sister. And go to our website, amaassociates.com, and you'll see the coaching and all kinds of things that we offer. And we do counseling, coaching, and consulting. You can also find us and me on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube. Just look for Angela Celeste May, all of those places, and come and follow me, and doing some really cool, great stuff. And also my book is available as well. I have paper sticking out of it, but this is my book, Freedom: What is the Experience of Living Without Negative Self-Imposed Limitations? And you can find this on Amazon and on the Ex Libris site where it was published as well. Wonderful. I got lots of wonderful feedback about the book, and I did some research. I worked and interviewed a set of people from very diverse backgrounds, and out of that research came these 7 key themes that helped folks get from feeling stuck in some manner in their lives, professionally, personally, whatever the case may be, to a point of freedom where they freed their voice. They freed up their voice. So yes, do check that out. And I think that's most of what's going on right now.
Music.
You already mentioned you said what now?
Music. Where do we find your music?
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so sorry. Yes, music. Yes. Oh my goodness. Reverb Nation. You can find me on reverbnation.com/Angela Celeste May. Both albums are there, Reintroducing the Lady and No Limits, and you can also purchase from there. You can also go to iTunes as well, Apple iTunes, and find my music also. Thank you for asking.
You're welcome.
So yeah, that's that's a lot of what's going on at the moment.
What's going on with the creative groups and the men,
that
group
that
you
is
have
part of
with-
our yeah, that's
Okay.
part of the coaching. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, thank you for asking. That is part of the coaching. I'm not doing the men's group at the moment. I do the stress management for
Mhm.
Black men specifically. And when I do it, I do four weeks at a time. So 4-week sessions and take breaks in between. But we do have an online, you'll see it when you go to our Facebook page for AMA and Associates. We also have a creative group under that. And we invite creatives. We have creatives from all around the country, all around the world. And when we say creatives, whatever, we have writers, authors, of course, right? We have musicians, we have dancers, painters, crafts people, just regardless of what it is. And we just try to offer some positive, encouraging things. We do interviews with some of our creatives to inspire other folks. So we do a variety of things on that, and that is on Facebook. And as a matter of fact, we do, if you come and join us on that Facebook page. We have an interview coming up with one of our creatives, a writer. Her name is Nicole, and that will be in December. So go to Facebook and look for AMA and Associates, look for our creative group. Thank you. And you have to answer a couple of questions to join us, but we want you to come join us. Absolutely.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Angie. We love having you on the show. You always break a topic down so well for us.
Thank you. I love coming on.
Thank you. And we know you'll have another exciting topic for us in the month of December. Can you believe it? 2022 is almost over. We're ready for 2023. This is crazy. So thank you again. We look forward to seeing you again next month.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys for tuning in. You can find me everywhere on social media, on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, on Snapchat, Twitter while it's still here, Snapchat, TikTok, LinkedIn, everywhere. And it's Kimberly Batchelor Davis. Batchelor is BATCHELOR. You can see this show at youtube.com/Kimberly Batchelor Davis. You can hear this show on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, Google, and Wisdom. And you can learn more about me as an author at kimbdavis.com. Thank you again for tuning in. And as always, remember, be magnificent.